Hey everyone, thank you so much for coming back to check out the second upload. I'm doing another ballpoint study today. This time it's a ballpoint ink drawing of an octopus, and the species here is Octopus vulgaris, or also known as like common octopus. That's what they're referred to as pretty often. And I'll go right ahead and just kind of say a little bit first about the technique, and then I'll move into some other topics. Here I'm working with just some like Strathmore drawing paper, nothing too fancy, and it's actually a red ballpoint pen. And I did the majority of this drawing like at work over the course of a few, days like on my lunch breaks and things like that. I think the red portion of the drawing you're looking at here totals out to probably about 3 hours. So I wouldn't call it a quick study, but nothing super time consuming either. And then what you see I'm doing here in the time lapse is adding some contrast and kind of darkening up some of like the core shadows and stuff like that with black ballpoint pen. And I like to use zebra brand ballpoint pens for this type of rendering. They're really smooth and delicate, and you have a lot of control with your lines and your rendering. I highly recommend their product. They're not like a sponsor or anything like that. I think they make good pens, so they're definitely worth checking out. And yeah, so you'll see here I'm kind of going in and adding a little bit of detail in those like skin textures and some of the cast shadows and core shadows and stuff like that. And this is kind of a new technique for me that I've been playing with. I've seen other artists do it a little bit over the years, and I kind of always meant to try it and never really got around to it. But I really like the idea of kind of having an underdrawing that's all ink. That way you don't have any of the messiness that comes with like graphite and then adding ink over it. But it's still nice because it kind of gives you a little bit of a rough draft to play with. And then when you add the contrast, you can kind of hide your mistakes and bring the drawing more to life, so to speak. Here I'm kind of adding in some more like cast shadows underneath like the body of the animal. And you'll see I kind of get into some nice detail work when I work on like the siphon and like kind of the side, the bumpy skin texture along like the side of it, the way I did the eye. Another good pointer for ink drawing, and you can utilize this for ballpoint ink or for like pigment liners, something like micron pens and stuff like that, is utilize blending stumps that are normally for like graphite and charcoal in your ink drawings. And I know that probably sounds weird to a lot of people. I've had a lot of people over the years kind of ask me, how do I kind of smooth out tone and ink and hide a little bit of your cross hatching and like your line work where you don't want that to be visible, or where you just want like kind of more of like a smooth rendering. And honestly, like blending stumps work really well with ink drawings, on probably just as well as they do with graphite. You just have to utilize them a little bit differently. You have to press a little bit harder, and you have to make sure you're working on quality paper that is thick enough and absorbent enough to kind of take the abuse that you're going to put it through by like rubbing on it. Practice with it first, like do some like kind of little patches of like cross hatching, and then hit it with like a blending stump to kind of get the feel of it before you do that. But I've found that to be like a very useful technique, and it's how I get a lot of like the wide range of tones and stuff in my ink drawings. And you can see that's what I'm working with here now. Actually, that's not a pen, that's a blending stump, and you can see it just takes the edge off a little bit and hides some of those like harsh lines in your cross hatching, and it gives you more of like a subtle smooth tone, but you still have all the benefits of an ink drawing. It's a little more durable, you have more contrast, and it's a little cleaner than in my opinion than like graphite would be. And it's also nice if you are working with colored pens, because you have that option to kind of work with multiple tones. And I guess my aim here was to kind of imply this being a colored study, even though I'm really only working with two values right now. The main ones obviously being black and red, but by nature, the red ink, when you kind of blend it, kind of takes on a pink tone, and the black ink, when you blend it, takes on like a dark blue or almost a purple tone. And with that, I was able to sort of replicate the natural colors of the animal, at least like in the state that it was in when it was photographed, because here I'm just using some like Alame like stock footage for reference. But it kind of gave me like that like purple skin tone, which was nice, without having to worry about like utilizing colored pencils. because sometimes less is more for me, and I like to kind of, only have a couple tools that I'm working with just to keep things simple. But anyway, just a few things I wanted to touch on as far as technique. I'm also trying to make it a point to kind of talk about the science behind this work, like in the name of good science communication, which is a big part of science illustration. I think it's important to kind of dedicate a little bit of time to that as well. And yeah, let's talk about like how weird octopods are, like let's talk about cephalopods. And this species in particular is kind of, a go-to for me to draw just because I think aesthetically they're really beautiful. And for me, they've kind of become something that I would say is easy for me to draw. So I'm in my comfort zone, but I still don't like to get complacent. I still like to do studies and practice this sort of work. And that's the whole point here, really, what I'm doing. This is, in the name of being like a good naturalist, you have to kind of really truly gain a legitimate understanding of your subject matter when you do this type of artwork for a living, if it's part of your career. And I like to stay up on, always have like a drawing at your desk that you're working on a little bit at a time that is simply just for the sake of understanding the subject. It's not for a client, and it's not really, for anything that you're going to gain financially from, but it's something that you're going to gain intelligence from, or you're going to gain experience from. These animals really are incredible. And to put things in perspective, a lot of people think of, octopods and cephalopods as being like foreign or alien because they're so different from like our human body plan. But the Earth is 4.6 billion years old, and there's only really been life on the planet, complex multicellular life, for the last 500 million years. And the first fossilized animals, or some of the first fossilized animals, are animals a lot like modern octopus species that we have today. And I think that's really cool. I think that's really inspiring. And as kind of creepy or unsettling as sea life can look, I think it's really important to kind of keep that in perspective, that, the planet really does in a lot of ways sort of belong to them. Hey guys, just wanted to come on here for a minute at the end to help you guys put a face to the name, but also mainly just to thank you so much for sticking this far into the video and for checking out the channel. As always, comments and feedback are greatly appreciated, so if there's something that you would like to see, or if you had any ideas, any directions you'd like to see this kind of channel go in, please leave a comment. If there's anything that you've seen on my Instagram that you'd like me to get more in detail here on this account, please let me know, and thank you guys so much for checking it out.